Call this meeting to order at 1:03 p.m. Mr. Hickman, would you do the invocation?
I will. Stand, please. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for this day of life you blessed us with, for traveling grace to get here, for each one that's present, for the audience, the staff, each council member, and for our chair. I pray, Father, that you'll bless us with wisdom and knowledge this afternoon. And I pray for our nation, federal nation. I pray for our tribal nation. Pray for our leaders. Help us, Father. Do good work for the people that we represent. I pray for those that are standing in harm's way this morning, protecting the things that we hold dear in our life. Pray, Father, you watch over them and keep them safe and bring them home soon. For those that are hurting this morning, that are sick, those that are worried about their finances, all the things, you know all about it, Father, and I pray that you'd bless those folks and help them get through it. Go with us now, help us do good work, and forgive us where we fail. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Roll call.
Meredith Fraley.
Here.
Bill England.
Here.
Bill John Baker.
Here.
Jack Baker.
Here.
Harley Buzzard. Julia Coates.
We're
Bradley Cobb. Joe Crittenden.
Here.
Jody Fishinghawk.
here.
Janelle Fulbright. Here. John Garvin. Chuck Hoskin Jr.
Here.
Kyla Gore Jordan. Curtis Snell.
Here.
Chris Soap. David Thornton.
Present.
Kara Callan.
Oh, honey.
No quorum.
We have a quorum. Order of business is approval of the December 15 regular session minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Minutes stand approved as written. Next order of business, our reports. First is Ms. Wright with Marshal Service. Hi, Sharon.
Hello. You've got my written report, so if you have any questions, I'll answer those, and then I have a couple of announcements.
And then any questions or comments from Ms. Wright? Yes, Mr. Thornton?
This drive down at the South Saw Park, it's Coy County. The Cherokee Nation took over. It's about 1,200 acres down there. And the people have dispatched a marshal down there on several occasions. And I just want to report with you that he's doing a great job down there.
Well, thank you.
And we sure appreciate having one in that district.
Well, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Short.
Okay, and my two little things I wanted to say first is Special Olympics. We are raising funds for Special Olympics, and we have a polar plunge come February 20th. So any of you that would like to donate, now he's already donated to Gina, but any of you who would like to donate, I'm taking donations for that from February 20th. And other than that, we'd like you to come out because they actually have auctions on some baskets and things that are there that day, and they continue raising monies through that plunge day. So it starts at 10 o'clock, and then the plunging starts at 11, and it's usually over 12:30ish. So it's at Arrowhead Resort, north on Highway 10. And it's great fun to come out, and if you'd like to donate, please donate. The other is I had an officer who went on vacation last week, and his wife was sitting on shore, and he was snorkeling, and she spotted someone in the water, and the guy had some issues, and he thought he was doing a body recovery. He is actually Danny Tanner is our administrative training officer. He's also on our dive team recovery team, and he's also our tactical medic. So she waved him over. He was able to bring the elderly gentleman out of the water. He was actually dead from his signs, and he did all he could and got medic help there. And so the gentleman is now alive. He's in ICU, but he did a great job, and he was on vacation while he did that. So I just wanted to pass that on to you.
Thank you. Next report is Ms. Hammond's, the next two reports.
My name is Sarah Hill. I'm Assistant Attorney General, and Ms. Hammond is snowed in Washington, D.C. right now. From the report, Cheryl Handy, one of our Assistant Attorney Generals, attended the Justice Conference regarding violence against women in Indian Country in Oklahoma City, and she was also admitted to the Cherokee Nation Institutional Review Board, which before she became a lawyer, she was a critical care nurse for many years. So she was admitted to the Institutional Review Board to assist them. Christy Nemo, another of our attorneys, also attended the Violence Against Women Conference and also presented at the Cherokee Nation Early Childhood Unit Fall Training, where she talked about reporting child abuse and those types of issues. And Robert Garcia, one of our newest attorneys, spoke with our Cherokee Law Institute students about the Cobell settlement and explained what was going on in Cobell so they would have a better understanding of that. And also facilitated with our emergency management team to help them with FEMA compliance. And that's all that I have, and I don't have anything new to report on GEG.
Any questions or comments? No, thank you. Thank you. GEG, did you have anything on that? No. Okay.
I don't have anything else.
Election Commission, is anyone, Mr. Johnson?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I believe you all received our monthly report. In addition to that, I noticed on the agenda that there was nothing listed concerning election rules. Is that something that we wanted to, or council wanted to discuss now, or
Yeah, we'll have to amend the agenda to do that.
is the council going to do that, or?
It depends on the council.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay. Any questions or comments from Mr. Johnson? Okay, next report is the Ms. Swetston Tax Commission. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, good afternoon. I believe you have my report in front of you, and I will try to address any questions that you might have.
Ms. Fisher-Hall?
Yeah, I noticed our law enforcement amount was down. Can you speak to that, please?
On the amount of what's being given out, revenues were down last year for the whole year, and most of that was due to the fact that people just weren't buying new cars and registering them. We saw a decline in the registration tax on new vehicles. Most of it's renewals, or they bought an older vehicle. You're just not seeing a lot of the new vehicles last year.
How's expenses on that? Revenues are down and expenses holding, are you?
Yeah, we
have they
actually had
increased
money.
along with revenues?
No, we try to adjust based on the revenues, so actually our expenses were down. We actually had money left last year in our budget, so we didn't spend everything that was in our budget last year. I'm sorry. Oh.
Is that all, Ms. Fisher-Hall? Mr. Buzzard?
Sharon, I did speak about the tag office in Delaware County. Where are we on that yet?
I was up there a couple of weeks ago, and the electrician has done all of his work, so that's completed. The major issue they have is with the roof, and my understanding is that they are addressing that and working on that, because there is a leak where the two buildings tie together. But they're moving forward on it. It's just slow. A lot of that's due to the weather and stuff, too. It's hard to work on the roof when there's snow and rain and stuff on it. But
is the inside fairly well finished?
last time I was up there, the electrician had just put all his stuff in, and they hadn't started any sheetrock work, and my understanding was they couldn't until they got the roof fixed. So
is there a projection date on when?
I haven't gotten, Mr. Greenfeather has not given me a projection date, but I will try to get you one.
Okay, I
Okay.
appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes. Any other questions? Thank you, Sharon.
You're welcome.
Self-governance, Ms. Handy.
Good afternoon, I'm Angela Thompson. Vicky's out of the country. She asked me to stand in for her. You have her report, and I will try to address any questions you may have.
Do you have any questions or comments for Ms. Thompson? If not, thank you. Thank you. And Gaming Commission, Mr. Hummingbird. Thank you for gracing us with your presence.
Well, my one good deed for the day. I believe you have my report in your packet. There's not been any really new developments since submitted the report, so I'll be glad to entertain any questions you might have.
Ms. Fisher-Hall.
Sharon, do you ever catch any Carol incident or violations?
Do I? No, we have not seen any terror incidents come across our path just yet.
Any questions, comments? You don't have any more, Jamie, to report?
I'm going to call it good.
Oh, you did good today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Codification, Mr. Hendry.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, this last week I gave a codification presentation to the Cherokee Nation Supreme Court, gave them up to date, gave them a list, and that I will share with the council also of all the titles that are complete and near completion. Obviously, there are a couple out there that still needs to be passed. The Title IV, gaming, the election code, and tarot need to be solidified. I've contacted again Mr. Joe Q from Westlaw, and we are going to compile for him a complete PDF of all the completed acts, and he said with that he would be able to give us a solid bid on doing the books. The one suggestion from the Supreme Court on codification is that we go to a different color. Our first book was a dark green, 1 volume. The second set was 2-volume dark blue. When we print these, it should be a 4 or 5 volume, and they suggested red or any other color that the council may want, but just to keep it simple, that you have different colors as it goes. But other than that, that's the report, and we're pressing on. We've only got a few more things to do.
Thank you, John. I don't guess anyone have any questions. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to amend the agenda to consider the court's ruling on redistricting and also the remand report and David Justice's information that was distributed to all of you, I guess, this morning.
Motion so moved.
Second with a friendly amendment to also consider the Katua resolution.
The Katua resolution. Who was the second?
With the friendly amendment. Thank you, Madam
Okay,
Speaker.
all in favor of amending the agenda? Any discussion on amending the agenda? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. We will consider those as items 6 and 7 under new business. Item 6 will be the resolution on Katua, and item 7 will be the election law, because it may take longer. Okay, under old business is a resolution authorizing confirmation of William Grass as a member of the Board of Managers of Cherokee Medical Services. Hi, Melanie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This has been on your agenda for some time. It's a nomination to a subsidiary of CNI, those separate LLCs being created for 8A purposes.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? Any discussion, Ms. Fishinghawk?
Why don't we appoint more board members when we're going to consolidate these boards?
This particular one, even in the concept of consolidating the boards, wouldn't be affected because we create these separate entities so that we have competition on 8A and 8A business, and they have to be separate entities created as LLCs.
And we determined he was Cherokee, but he didn't live in the 14 county area.
He is Cherokee. He lives in Tulsa, but it's outside the 14 counties.
Ms. Corey Jordan?
And he's currently on the CNI board.
Yes.
And this is the same board that we're going to talk about losing $2.2 million.
It's a subsidiary of CNI, yes. Of course, it is not the medical service that is involved in that particular transaction.
But he is a current board member.
He is current board member.
And
yes.
he'll make decisions involving the construction unit of CNI.
Yes.
I just want to go on record that I can't support him because we're looking at such a huge loss on our construction arm of CNI. We need to get a hold and get a full understanding of what's going on over at CNI. And if he's one of the board members, I'm not for supporting him at this time on any additional boards.
Mr. Thornton? You three, Ms. Thornton, sorry. Mr. Thornton?
This appointment is for the Cherokee Medical Services. What's his background in medical services?
I can't speak to Mr. Grass's background in that particular business. Of course, all of them are overseen presently by the CNI board entirely. But there must be a manager appointed to each of these individual LLCs. When they call board meetings, they typically call board meetings for all of these entities at the same time so that they can consider the business of all of them. So really it floats up to the board level at CNI at this point. And if it's consolidated, it will float up to the larger consolidated board.
Well, I know he's well renowned. He's a businessman and he's a craftsman. Medical services, I don't see why we would appoint someone with that background for medical services. That's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor of this confirmation?
Roll call, I would ask for roll call.
Roll call. Yes, as you support the confirmation of Mr. Grass.
Joe Crittenden,
Yes.
Jody Fishenhop,
No.
Meredith Fraley,
Yes.
Janelle Fulbright, Don Garvin,
Yes.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
No.
China Glory Jordan,
No.
Chris Stokes,
Yes.
Curtis Snell,
No.
David Thornton,
No.
Kara Cowan Watts,
Yes.
Yul Anglin,
Yes.
Bill John Baker, Jack Baker,
Yes.
Carly Buzzard,
Yes.
Julia Coates,
Yes.
Bradley Cobb.
Yes.
11 yes and 5 no.
11 yes, 5 no. He is confirmed. Okay, item 2 is an amendment to the motor vehicle licensing tax code amending allocation of revenues. Mr. Buzzard, what is that?
Yes, and I want to go ahead and make a motion to approve this second act.
Moved and second, discussion? Yes, Mr. Jordan?
If I could address this to her.
Sure.
Is it still going to, did we find an alternative source of funding?
I've looked at it, and I've actually had the numbers sent out to the committee and council members, and hope you had a chance to look at that. But after looking at that and taking into consideration what Dr. Cobb had mentioned the last time, I have come up with a different language that I wanted to propose to see if this would go to the other council members. First, I want to just talk about a little bit about the reason I wanted to do this, if that's okay with the chair. It's to support a lot of small schools that we have. And I know I have 3 schools in my district. Curtis is also in my district. And then we have a lot of small schools that don't have the revenues that the larger school has. Plus the tax money they get is a little bit small. They don't get $7,000 to $10,000. And it would certainly help those schools that have Indian kids in there to have a program to where they could go out and do things different than what they're doing. And all of us know that school revenues are down. You know, they could go do it for educational purposes, or they could put a language program within that school system. Look at the science, the ACES programs could actually be started in those schools. Even take culture trips, like the Gilcrease Museum, Cherokee Nation Heritage Center, Spiral Mound. You know, those things are all important to Cherokees, to our kids, and if we give those people an opportunity to do that, whereas now they simply can't do it because of the funding levels. The other thing that was brought up was the application processes, and those will be handled through the education department. Hopefully that we get to take a look at those before they are approved. So I wouldn't think they would be too stringent to where some schools would have to go out and hire a grant writer to make those grants. So hopefully that's taken care of. The other thing is the compact was up a little bit before, and I've just had some people check on it for me, and it doesn't seem that it would affect the compact because we're still going to be giving 38% of the tax money back to the schools, so I don't see that being a problem. But what I would like to do is go back and take a look at this, because as it stands now, we don't have any, the word I'm trying to get is, we don't have any follow-up as where any of the 38% of those dollars are going. And not only that, there's some of the other programs within the Cherokee Nation that we don't have a follow-up on either. So I'd like to say at least if we give 10%, at least we know where those dollars are going to go to. I talked to some people that are in close contact with some of the schools, and their points to me said that would be a great program. They'd like to have it, because now it goes into the general fund of the schools, and it can be spent for a car, it can be spent for a bus. And if we'll all think about it, you know, all the monies that's going in schools are actually from people that buy tags, and we're all Cherokee or all Indian. So at least we know some of our Indian kids are getting value and get use of those funds that go back into there. I just think it's a good program. What I would do is look at the cost of it. And if I could go back and revise it, I would probably say let's take 5% from the tag tax and take 5% from the motor tax revenue. That would still give us 10%. It wouldn't take away a whole lot of money from each district now, but cut it back to 5%. But I'd make that in the form of a motion to do 5% from the school allocation and 5% from the motor fuel tax revenue. And I'd put that in the form of a motion.
Second?
Second.
Second, discussion?
Ms. Knight, could I yield to Ms. Knight for something now?
Just a moment. We had Ms. Fulbright and Mr. Clement.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Do I still have the floor?
Pardon?
I started with the original question to
Oh, I'm
Harley.
sorry. Yeah, you sure did. Sorry about that.
So, if I understand you right, Harley, we are considering then a change of an alternative source.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so now we're only looking at 5% coming
Yes, ma'am.
from off the top of what goes to all the schools.
Yes.
And the other 5% will come from where?
The motor fuel tax revenue.
Okay, now, what currently, refresh my memory, what are we using it for now?
That goes to like 4 different, it goes to the roads program, marshal services, education, health, and then it goes to the general fund. I think there's 5 places that it goes to actually.
So it would reduce a small amount on our roads, law enforcement, and
Well, I think
drainage.
part of it would, yeah, would reduce a little bit of those.
Okay. Can I continue with that line? I would like to hear a little bit from Ms. on what how that 5% would impact those 4 areas.
On the motor fuel side?
Mm-hmm.
It's motor vehicle tax. Motor vehicle tax. On the motor vehicle tax, we would just have to go back through and do a recalculation, because right now it calls for 38%. If we took 5% more out of those revenues, then it would affect,
Drop it 33%.
it would drop the law enforcement and the roads on the others, so.
Okay. And that's currently divided 4 ways?
3 ways. You get 38% that goes to schools, then you get 20% that goes to law enforcement and roads and engine fund.
And we're not reducing the gym fund amount any?
We could.
That's where the mistake was. I was going to reduce the gen fund account by 5%.
Okay.
The balance.
I'll second that.
Okay. What was your question, Ms. Gordon?
She just answered my question, and I think he's amending his motion, which I want to second. If that would be for Mrs. Butler.
Yes, that's what I should have said. The other 5% would come from the gen fund account, which actually come from the tax account.
And you're seconding that?
Well, I think to be completely correct, Curtis seconded his, and he just amended it. So, as I understand it now, 5% would come from that gym fund portion that goes from motor fuel tax, and 5% would come from this. And I can be very much for that.
Madam Speaker, point of clarification. Madam Speaker, I've got a second in there somewhere. I'm not sure where. No, I have a second somewhere. I'm just an original second somewhere. I'm just making sure I'm not.
He seconded it. Didn't Mr. Snell second it?
That's the one I heard.
Okay.
I think he seconded the first one, and then
He
the
seconded
amendment
the
was
first
seconded.
and then the first.
I wish to have my name removed as a sponsor from the original act. She must have her name removed as a sponsor. Mr. Thornton?
Yes, Harley, I'd like to introduce a friendly amendment, and this would be concerning the tag tax funding. If we would earmark 25% of that money that goes to each school for the Cherokee students, I would be all for that. But I would like to earmark that funding to be put into a fund at the school for our Cherokee students. Because I realize that that funding that we put ahead, I wanted to earmark the whole thing when we first brought this out and passed it. But what our Cherokee students aren't benefiting, I don't feel, from this. And you brought up a good deal here. You know, I appreciate it and I'll support it in that way. But I wanted an additional 25% of that money earmarked to go into the schools for Cherokee students to be put in a fund set aside where they can use it if our seniors or Cherokees if they graduate, they can use $100 for their cap and gown. If they deserve a jacket over those 4 years they've been in school, they can use it to buy jackets with. They can do other things with it to help our Cherokee students, and that's the way I feel about it. So,
Well, I appreciate your support on it, Councilor Thornton, but at this time I would not accept that amendment, and I'll tell you why. Because this is something new, and I think there are always some concerns about telling some of those schools where they could spend the dollars. So I think if we'd go in at 5% now and maybe take a look at it later and see how this works, and yes, I think you're right. I'd like to see 100% go to them. I feel like we did 25% right now. It's probably going to. I just like to see how this works first.
I can't support it.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Calwatts, I'm sorry, I did have her down,
Yeah,
and then Mr. Crittenden.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was curious because I have similar concerns, Councilman Thornton does, so, but I think we would need more details to make a decision about, you know, is that spend all that 25% on Cherokees playing football? Then that's not something, I mean, I would think we would need more craft around that would maybe be specifically to educational deals and what that would look like. I mean, something maybe at a future meeting I would be happy to consider. I think that's exciting, so I just want to put that on, that I hope you pursue that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Thornton, did you want to respond? Did you want to respond?
Well, the way I feel about it, it could go for the same things that Mr. Buzzard has earmarked for. So, you know, it could go for everything that our Cherokees students need, and they have lots of needs out there. And we have a very low income within a lot of our Cherokees that live in different districts in the southeastern part of the nation. You know, I'm going to try to help a bit way I can. But that's one way that I think we can help them. I've thought that way since the beginning of this allocation that we structured to go to schools. And, I can't, you know, I'd like to support this.
Mr. Crittenden?
I just have a question about the legality of designating certain percentages of that money for certain uses within the schools. Per the contract, the compact, if there's no restrictions, Harley, I could go along with David's idea and just say instead of 25%, let's just do 100% of it. You know, but I think there may be some things in that compact that don't allow us to do what we're wanting to do here. I mean, I don't know.
Melanie, are you familiar with?
I have reviewed that question because Councilor Buzzard asked me to do that. And I've also sent it to the AG's office to ensure that I'm right in my interpretation of the compact. But the compact requires 38% go to the schools, and but it does not define how is that to be distributed. Is not defined how it is to be spent by those schools. So if the nation wanted to impose additional requirements on that 38%, I think it's allowable as long as 38% goes to those schools.
Mr. Crittenden, any further?
Well, that would be kind of like the deal we had on hunting and fishing. We could have a test, fly it out there and see what happens, I guess. I don't know. That's all. I'm done.
Mr. Thornton and then Mr. Baker.
And the way I read this, then our education department would have total say-so over who benefits from this and which schools. Will there be a application of any kind that will put in motion for these schools to apply for this? Is this in this act?
Melanie, are you directing that to Melanie?
Councilor Buzzard can speak to how he envisioned it, when he sponsored it. But as it's written, if I were taking it and implementing it, it would be a competitive process. So therefore, you need some form of application and criteria for funding. Typically, what we do is when we get applications like that, it's a time period that we accept applications. There's a deadline. We get all of those applications and rank and rate them against one another and fund the top applications until you can fund no more of them. And typically, we'll get a committee together to do that, to make sure that there is impartiality in that process. So that's usually what we do on subcommittee.
You haven't really set aside the procedures of how this is going to be spent.
No, other than, what it must be spent for, so that leaves it open to proposals from those schools to
So the
propose.
25% or whatever could be included in that easily. What Mrs. Calvin was saying, that there's procedures set aside to use this money. I'm going to make a motion to table.
Second. Motion to table and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Roll call. Motion is to table, yes, Mr. Ford, table.
John Garvin,
No.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
No.
China Gloria Jordan,
Yes.
Chris Sugg,
No.
Curtis Snell,
No.
David Thornton,
Yes.
Kara Cowan Watts,
No.
Bill England,
No.
Bill John Baker,
No.
Jack Baker,
No.
Harley Buzzard,
No.
Julia Coates,
No.
Bradley Cobb,
No.
Joe Crittenden,
Yes.
Jody Fishenhawk,
Yes.
Meredith Fraley,
Yes.
Janelle Fulbright.
No.
Five yes and 12 no.
9 yes, 12 no. Motion to table fails. Continue the discussion, and Mr. Jack Baker.
Yes, I have a question, preferably for Callie, but since she isn't here, Ms. Knight possibly. We have no unappropriated funds at present. Now, what effect will this 5% coming from Gen Fund have on other programs?
That's an excellent question. I had the same question myself, and we had a sidebar. Doug, you want to join me? The second 5%, from my understanding of the motion, would come from the Gen Fund portion. I assumed all of the Gen Fund portion was budgeted. Mr. Evans informs me that it has not all been budgeted from the reconciled amount, and so there should be funds available to make that 5% available to this.
Matter of fact,
Clarify.
in Mod 4, a lot of these vehicle portion budgets are coming into play that we'll talk about in the next meeting. However, one budget was not submitted this month, and that one budget is the residual transfer to the gen fund, which equals everything left after apportionment. That particular budget would have increased the gen fund's revenue available for appropriation by $356,000. That budget needs to be put on the table, and I'm confident it'll be in, if not added to Mod 4 in our next meeting. That will be where the approximate $138,000, 5% you're talking about would have to be funded out of.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Is the, are we on the motion to amend?
Yes.
Mr. Buzzard's not on the underlying.
Yes, I just asked her.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Baker, is that all you
Yes.
had? So,
Actually, Doug answered my question.
any other questions or comments? All minds are clear. Madam Secretary, would you read the motion, including the amendment? I mean, the amendment.
I believe the amendment is to take 5% from gen fund, the motor fuel tax portion, and 5% from school allocation.
All minds clear?
I'm just voting on the amendment. Just the amendment, not the whole question.
Yes.
Point of order, I thought that was accepted as a friendly amendment to the original
Was it a
motion.
friendly?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, then we're voting on the total motion, including the amendment.
Would you have her read the whole motion?
Okay, would you read the motion?
The motion to approve the legislation with the amendment of 5% coming from gen fund of the motor fuel tax portion and 5% from school allocation.
Okay, now, are we clear? Ms. Watts, did you have a question?
Just because this is such a critical piece, that there's outside folks involved, for clarification purposes, the original main motion, I think, was seconded by Councilor Cobb.
Right.
Okay, so if it was a friendly amendment, it wouldn't have required the second from Councilman Snell, but I never heard an official acceptance from the second.
Yes.
Just
Got it now?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Am I wrong? My understanding was Harley made the main motion, Curtis seconded the main motion.
No, I did, while he was talking.
How do you have it down?
I had the main motion, Harley made the motion, and Brad seconded the motion. And then Harley made a motion on the 5% fuel tax, 5% school allocation, and Curtis seconded that.
Oh, that's okay. I remember also Curtis. Okay, now all minds clear.
Thank you.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye. This is a total motion, including the amendment. Sorry, David.
Madam Chairman, it's a legislative act, so that we require a roll call vote or acclamation.
Roll call this down.
Okay. Bradley Cobb,
Yes.
Joe Crittenden,
No.
Jody Fishinghawk,
No.
Meredith Rayleigh,
No.
Janelle Fulbright, no. Don Garvin,
Yes.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
Yes.
Tina Glory Jordan,
No.
Chris Soap,
Yes.
Curtis Snell,
Yes.
David Thornton,
No.
Kara Cowan Watts,
Yes.
Bill Anglin,
Yes.
Bill John Baker,
No.
Jack Baker,
Yes.
Harley Buzzard,
Yes.
Julia Coates.
Yes.
We have 10 yes and 7 no.
10 yes, 7 no, motion carries. Okay, under new new business. We have a resolution from the nomination of Casey Ross-Patrick as a member of the Cherokee Nation Education Corporation, and I understand she is here today. She is. Mr. Baker?
Make a motion to be approved.
Second.
Moved in second. Discussion. Nellie, did you have a comment?
Just to say, we're pleased to nominate Casey to this position. She's a former, and still does work for the Cherokee Nation, but also works for Oklahoma City University School of Law, and heads up the Native American program there. Has been involved in our education office, our Washington, D.C. office, health, and state legislative affairs, so she's a very competent individual. We think she'd be a great asset to the corporation. She's here to answer any questions you have.
Casey? Do you have any comments before we open it up for questions?
No, just thank you all for taking time on your busy agenda today to accommodate this issue, and I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Any questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Buzzard?
Yes, I'd hope that we all support Casey on this nomination. I've had an opportunity to work with Casey back in the roads program, and I can attest to what she's done for us in the D.C. office. Has opened some doors up there for us, so she's a smart lady, and she would certainly be an asset to our department.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thank you for being here today. Was the weather conditions good in Oklahoma City?
They weren't too bad.
Okay, all in favor of this nomination signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations, Casey.
Thank you.
Second resolution is confirming the nomination of Tanya Roselle, but I understand that's you've withdrawn that request.
Yes, Madam Speaker. We respectfully withdraw this at this time.
Okay, thank you. Item 2 is withdrawn. Item 3, it confirms the renomination of Foreman Ross to the Sequoia High School Board of Education.
And he is also here, Madam Speaker. This is a renomination to Sequoia High School Board. He's been serving for quite some time from Salina, as you know, and is here to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Ross. Got a motion to approve? Second. Ms. Rush, you want to come forward?
Would you like to come forward? Do you have anything to say to the committee?
Mr. Ross, thanks for being here. Do you have any comments before?
No, I'm just glad to serve on the board. That's my second home there at Sequoia. And we're looking good. Everything's going smooth. I want to thank you all for the nomination.
Thank you for being here. Ms. Gloria Jordan? Do you have a comment?
No, I just make, have we made the motion yet? I'd make the motion to approve it.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Yes, sir.
Moved in second, now discussion. Oh, you already made it, okay. Okay, you built everything. All right. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hey, we have a resolution confirming the nomination of Sam Hart as the Commissioner of the Tax Commission, and I understand he has a funeral at this time. Couldn't be here.
I make the motion that we approve this.
Second.
Moved in second. Melanie, you have any comments?
Just that Mr. Hart's a business owner, I think well known to many of you. He wants to serve the Cherokee Nation in some capacity, and so the principal chief saw fit to nominate him to the Tax Commission. We think he'd be a great asset to the Tax Commission.
Do you have any questions or comments for Ms. Knight? Okay, all in favor of this nomination, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 5 is the resolution authorizing tribal officials to approve Indian preference applications. Mr. Baker?
Yes. This resolution, at present, Indian preference applications are used for verification of Indian preference for employment in the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Indian Health Service. And currently, the Cherokee Nation has to send those verifications to the BIA for approval. And this resolution allows the Cherokee Nation to do it themselves without having to take the extra time to go to the BIA and wait for them to do it.
Move for approval.
I make a motion that it be approved.
Who, Mr. Cobb made the motion, and who second? Second. Mr. Thornton. Now discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. Item 6 is I think you have the resolution in front of you here supporting the Eastern Band Cherokee in the preservation and protection of the Katua Mound in North Carolina. We got information about this. Gail talked to Rosie at the Eastern Band, and then we did further research, and Ms. Cowan has come forward with this resolution in support. Do you want to comment?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to make a motion to approve with one amendment to strike the last "be it resolved."
Last, it is further resolved by the council that will pledge the use of any resources available. Is that the one you want to strike?
Yes, we just don't know the scope of it, so even though this is a resolution non-binding, I would hate to set up expectations I don't know that we can meet at this point.
Second the motion.
Moved in second.
And I'd like to be a co-sponsor if possible.
Okay. Did you get Mr. Gardner? Mr. Baker?
And I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor, please.
Mr. Thornton?
Okay.
Any others want to be added? Mr. Anglin?
That's one right up there, see?
His name.
She wants to be.
Ms. Coates?
Why not? In my acclamation.
Okay, I've got Kara, Harley, Don, Jack, David, Yule, Juliet, and Bill John.
Yes. Any others? And that'll be for that.
And just for clarification purposes, Madam Speaker, does it also somehow need to go get education next Tuesday, or because it goes straight into, assuming we amend the agenda next Tuesday at full council, would it go straight from here to there if we were to amend the agenda?
If the committee wants to do that, yes.
Okay. But we don't need to necessarily make a motion, we would just, at full council?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Is that right, Mr. Henry?
That's correct. The motion would need to be made in full council, but it doesn't need to go through any other.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor of this resolution, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, item 7 is to consider the election law and possible action if necessary. Mr. Henry, do you want to kind of get us organized on that?
Yes, Madam Chairman. As you recall, when we were passed the amendments to all the election laws, we left Section 5 in reserve. Since that time, there's been a number of important activities. First of all was a decision by Judge Bart Fight after a quick consultation between myself, Mr. Cole, the attorney for the Election Commission, and Chief Smith. We decided to put 2 questions to Judge Fight to help clarify the actions as we go forward. Judge Fight was very accommodating to us and literally scheduled the hearing in 1 or 2 days. We showed up, we put these questions to Judge Fight, and Judge Fight made a ruling that it was his intent or understanding that the council would take action on the remand report that the Election Commission filed. And so therefore, he moved the evidentiary hearing that was scheduled for February 5th until such time that the council took some type of action on the remand report. He also made the ruling that until Legislative Act 1408 was fully implemented, that as was the law of the land would 9 districts would stand until further action. And he also made the ruling that the Constitution did not require 15 separate districts, but it was totally within the purview of the council to create those districts in whatever fashion that the council saw fit. So, with that in mind, on January 25th, I wrote a memorandum to the tribal council, basically outlining 3 actions that number one, that the council should take some type of action, and gave three options: that of approving the 15 districts as is through Legislative Act 1408, and then after which we would have an evidentiary hearing on that. Number two, adopt the Election Commission's remand report. Or number three, what I would describe as the pull the plug version, and just say, look, we're just going to go back to 9. Further, on yesterday around 4:45, and I did get a heads up from Secretary Knight, but yesterday about 4:45, a memorandum came out authored by David Justice, stating that there were errors were discovered in the districting process, and that because of these errors, that the numbers to the Election Commission were skewed. Also, the numbers that we discovered or that we used originally were could be in question. The new figures that, according to the methodology used, and I'll just round off these figures, is that when we considered our numbers, we had 107,000 citizens roughly within the jurisdictional boundaries of the Cherokee Nation. When the Election Commission considered the numbers, there was 110,000 in the within the jurisdiction boundaries. The revised figures in yesterday's memo come to roughly 102,000, with some drastically different numbers in certain counties. I know that my original memorandum of January 25th asked that this council take some type of action. Based on the latest developments, I would recommend that the council further investigate the numbers, the methodology used in those numbers. I've spoken with Mr. Cole, the attorney for the Election Commission. They may decide to introduce a new remand report. I will let him speak to that. But at this point, I do believe that it is necessary that this council revisit the numbers and revisit the methodology to see where we're at on that. So that's where we're at this point, unless Ms. Secretary Knight or Mr. Cole would want to add anything at this point before we take questions.
Ms. Knight?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just to point out a couple of things pursuant to what the report Todd's given you. The number totaling 102,000 or so citizens does not include what we call bad addresses, and so we have taken out unverifiable addresses out of that number. The reason that we feel that that's a bit skewed is because it mostly affects two counties, and if you'll notice the difference in the two maps, the two counties most affected are Delaware County and Rogers County. The reason for that is that we did a series of mail-outs in those two counties, and we did not do the same level of mail-outs in other counties. So we got responses on bad addresses from those two counties more so than we did in the rest of the Cherokee Nation. So that caused those numbers to drop significantly, and the other counties to pretty much remain the same, or have much less changes, let's say. So the second set of maps that David included in his memo, and it would be the last page of his memo, includes these numbers, is the 110,000 number. That includes all of the bad addresses in the number. So all the bad addresses remain in the 110,000. You'll notice that Delaware and Rogers County are back up to, those slight changes from the 107 that represent growth that we would have expected from the 107 to the 110. And David Justice can explain it in a whole lot of technical detail. If you have any questions of him, he is here to answer those questions between the the 107 that you acted on, and that now this 110, if the election commission chooses to use it, that he's provided for you with all the bad addresses included. We have engaged BDK, I always get the initials wrong, BDK, our auditing firm, to audit for us and document the process we're using each time we pull this data to make sure that we do it consistently from here on out. And then secondly, to do some sampling of the data itself and ensure that we have consistency on that point. So they have started right away. We engaged them last week, and they were supposed to start either today or tomorrow on that process. So just wanted to inform you of that as well. David mentions it in his memo.
And you said David is here?
He is here.
Okay. We have Ms. Jordan and Mr. Hoskin. Ms. Jordan?
I think my question is directed to Todd, our legal counsel. Todd, what is your recommendation that the tribal council should do today, if anything?
My recommendation is not to do anything today. The numbers that we have dealt with are in question. The remand report that the Election Commission submitted to the court and this council, by no fault of the Election Commission, is in question. And for us to take action on numbers that we're not sure of, I think would not be responsible. So at this point, I am asking that the Election Commission revisit those numbers, that we get a better understanding of the methodology, and to see exactly where these numbers are at per district, and within the jurisdiction of the Cherokee Nation.
Then I make a motion that we just table any action on this until we see another report from the Election Commission regarding their numbers, and then place it on the appropriate agenda at that point.
I'll second it. We have a motion and a second to table. However, we do have a couple of people, if I may, that want to comment. If that's all right with you?
I think the motion to table takes precedent over everything. Is that my
I'm just asking if you want to allow them to speak.
Oh, what the heck? That's what you want to do.
Mr. Hoskins?
Well, I would keep it brief because I agree that we need a table, but I wanted to ask Todd, at some point are the parties going to stipulate what the numbers are, and this is what the court has to live with as far as what the numbers are, because the parties are going to stipulate in terms of the total population? Or are we going to be duking it out over that basic fact? Or is that the open question at this point?
I don't know. I can't answer your question. I just cannot answer your question until I get a better understanding of where the numbers are in the methodology and using what was the difference between, and how we came from the difference between the 1115 numbers and the 110 and the 102. So I can't answer your question.
Ms. Watt?
Thank you.
Mr. Cole, did you have a comment also? Okay.
Madam Chairman, if I could address the
Well,
issues.
Ms. Watts has the floor right now. I just saw you stand, and I wasn't sure.
So before we do table or not table or take any action, I want to clarify some things because I was pretty clear about the data. The data today, given the memo, now reflects what we've known for 6 years, that my district and Councilman Garvin's district are short a person, given the current nine district. The only reason there was data presented differently was because that bad addresses were excluded from that prior data set. So the data was there. It wasn't that the data was wrong that we were given. It was just not complete that we were given. And these numbers are indicative of what we've seen for 3 or 4 years now. It's what the courts ruled on before, the numbers we've been given today. So we either do 15 districts, in my mind, and I guess the courts have ruled that the Election Commission, which this body should ask to do so there's no further delay, because there's misinterpretation about what does or doesn't needs to be done. We either need to make a motion today and ask them to redistrict based on 15 or 5 or whatever the body chooses to do, or we need to apportion given our 9 so that the voters can feel like they have confidence in the 2011 election and move forward. But the idea that we have bad data is not true. Given that we don't do our own census, given that we don't audit our own Cherokee citizenship, this is the data we choose to live by. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Cole?
I thought with your permission, I might be able to add something to what Mr. Henry has said. In looking at the decision that Judge Fight has rendered, if you look at that document, what he says is that the present act of 15 districts has an infirmity in it. His observation was that because the original apportionment was not done by the commission. To Mr. Todd's benefit, he's been arguing that, well, the commission wasn't in place at that time, and therefore the council had to go act without that. And that's a legal issue that hasn't been decided one way or the other. But having read Judge Fight's decision here, what we're faced to do, unless somebody wants to take this issue in his judgment now in this position forward to the Supreme Court, what I think is we're all facing is that obviously now the commission would have to revisit our apportionment because the numbers are skewed. You know, it was complicated enough before, now it's further complicated, but having said that, that means that we've got to go back and do an apportionment again and submit it back to you all. But the interesting thing is Judge Fight says that what you have to do with that, that is the council has to do it. You have to put it back on your council agenda. You have to walk through it just like you did with 1408. You know, and I know, in all probability, the chief will probably veto it again. If it's in the same form it was before, you would expect him to do that. And therefore, then we would kick back to the courts again and be back in the court system. What troubles me as attorney for the commission is that we're running out of time to be prepared for your election in 2011. We've got either to deal with 15 districts or we've got to deal with 9. And that's interesting. What he's ruled is that he says that the default jurisdiction is 9 districts now, so that if you didn't do anything at all, would be have an election in the 9 districts, the original 9 districts. And if we knew that, why we would be more comfortable in feeling like we're prepared for this 2011 election. But having said that, we're just at a position where if you all decide, and we're all getting face this timeline for this election next year. We've talked among ourselves, and we think that July, we need to have some closure on this issue by July. And I hardly see that that's probably going to happen with your legislative process, that we probably get in that by that time. But having said that, if you give some consideration at this point in time, that not to entirely abandon the 15 districts, but maybe to delay it till after this 2011 election, that we all might be able to get by without being cramped, and we need to be at our very best when we have this 2011 election. And I don't know that we can have our very, very best if we're cramped and have a problem with getting it ready instead of 9 districts, 15 districts. So as a practical matter, I just want to point those things out to you all, that we're all faced with these kind of decisions to make. But I feel like the court wanted our best efforts in doing that apportionment, and I think now, because of these numbers we've got, it's not our best effort, and I think we'd have to revisit it. And I'm sure that the judge hasn't been made aware of this. I only got it in my hands just this morning, so I haven't really had a chance to look at it. But the fact, and I think Mrs. Watt's right, that number 102 has been out there a good long while, and why somebody has been ignoring it, I don't know. But having said that, that's my observations now, and we've met this morning, and we've talked about these various things, same things, and I think that's pretty much the census of my committee. is that we're really running against a tight line right now to be able to be prepared for this election next year. So I'm glad to answer any questions you all have, if you have any questions about it.
Appreciate you being here. We're just taking comments because we do have a motion to table, and she was kind enough because this is an important decision. We have 2 more comments, and then we'll vote. We have Ms. Fishing Hawk and Ms.
Thank you.
Baker.
Okay, Lloyd, I got a question for you.
Sure.
This, Todd and I asked from Leland Bertiski here back in, I guess, June 23rd of '08, for the numbers of the whole counties, the registration numbers for everybody that resides in a county. This was before geodata throughout the ones that were boundary, the ones that were on the outside. And then Todd asked for it again in '09, and I haven't got the signed copy. I've got a copy of the one Leila signed. Todd's got a copy of this one. This is your, if you take that, please, this is your '09 registration number. Here's my problem. I have a problem when Leila gives me numbers and, I've heard numbers about 8 years, so let's talk about Rogers County. 8207 is what Leila has in the whole county before geodata throws any numbers out. And then geodata at one time showed us, which is this little matrix laid out for you. It went down here through bordering counties, like District 4 had a total of 4,070 people filling out when it was run through geodata. District 5 had 2,380, District 6 didn't have none, District 7 had 1,000, and District 8 had 1,300. So Leila gives us these numbers, and it's the most any district can have to start out with before geodata throws them out, because these are total county totals. So Three Rivers shows 15.5 in '08. It's about the same in '09. And then David Justice comes along, and he throws out 4,000 of them. 4,100, as a matter of fact, according to Justice's numbers. So that takes the 15.5, and we throw out 4,100, so that leaves 11.4. And then, like, Don Garvin here give up Wagner. And in Wagner, there's about 2,700. So we take the 11.4, and we throw out the 2,700, so now we're down to 8,700 in Three Rivers.
Okay.
Okay, and then he also gave some of it up to, I think you, David, didn't you take a zip code or 2? So when it takes from 8,700 and you throw out the zip code, which would be another page where David Justice got it ready, we throw out another 1,400 off of 8,700. Now we got Three Rivers down to 7,300, when originally it started out at 15.5. So basically we threw out half of Three Rivers. So would you make sure that they run these through geodata? Because so far, David Justice has showed me about 4 or 5 sets of numbers, and I'm starting to think people are using numbers around here like a drunk uses a lamppost for support rather than illumination. So would you please make sure geodata runs them through there? And then I do got another couple of questions for you.
Okay, well, Jody, in due respect, we thought we had gotten those numbers, and we
Yes.
thought there was some truth to them and reliability on them, and so we say they're not. So we're all, I think, victims of that source of information, and I'm not sure we have any control over it.
Well, I'd also like them compared to once you get them to voting. Like my county has 1,800 people vote every election, and I don't think it's an overt citizenly zeal that Adair County wants to get out and vote, but other counties don't. I think there's going to be a correlation from the number of voters, to the number of citizens. I'd like you to compare it to schools, and keep in mind, when you divide up school money, don't include the ones that lay outside the district, because we got that 10-mile zone. And I think you're going to find some correlations between numbers and money we give out and voting and different things like that. And you just now said you all could possibly you all are ready for a 9-district vote, right?
Well, I made the observation that that's the judge ruling.
Okay.
The judge says that 1408 is infirm, and therefore the default is still the 19. But leaving you all the opportunity now to come back on what we thought was an accurate report that we made to you, that you could act upon, the remand report. Now we're going to have to change that, but you still have before you the process to whether you want to approve that or not approve it.
Okay, so we're at 9, and I got a question for Martha.
Let me just finish one item on this legislation on the new election laws. We need closure on it. You know, we've been here since September of 2008 working on this act to make amendments. We need that in place by our deadline so that we know how we're going to conduct this election. So we need to get closure on it. The one thing about it, there'll always be tweaking on that election laws. and you could stop here at some point in time and get it behind you, and with the right to revisit it later on and make any changes. I don't think you're going to get a perfect product anyway in the eyes of the politicians, but we do need to have it over with too, along with this issue here.
Thank you, Mr. Cole.
Thank
Martha,
you.
we have a motion to table. Martha, this is the last question, so we need to move on. Martha?
Martha, can the election commission, we're a year out from fine, anybody wanting to run, not too long away from having an election. What can you all be ready for? What can you tell us, not stretching it, in your certainty, you and Lloyd's and whoever else is on the commission, that you all can be ready for?
Okay, if candidates file for office March 1 year from next month, file for office. We have no election laws in place. We have no districts in place. The only thing I think we could do, and it would really rush us, is to leave it like it was the last election and do the 9 districts. And please, please, give us some election laws today or within the next 2 weeks. Those are the 2 things we've got to do. The apportionment may not be correct, but the word apportionment wouldn't even have been here if you all hadn't started talking about new districts. You just do that every 12 years.
Thank you.
The motion is to table, and Ms. Jordan, did you want this table to the next rules? I understood. That is February the 25th. February 25th.
I'm going to be guided by what Todd says there.
Madam Chairman, I would request that you table until a meeting until after the remand report, because we really won't be able to act on the remand report until the election commission revisits it. But I'm sure that's going to be real high on their agenda.
Any idea how long that will take?
I'd like to call David Justice about this letter. As soon as we find comfortable with the input that he has here, we'll have a special meeting. Kind of depends on the weather, but it'll be on our priority list. So I would say within the next 10 days that we'll be making that decision and having some better idea of where he's coming from, and whether or not we're going to have an adjustment on these numbers again sometime later on.
Mr. Hoskins?
I just was going to suggest, should we just table it to the next meeting? If the remand report's not out, we'll unfortunately kick it down the road a little bit further.
All minds clear, it is tabled until the Rules Committee on February 25th. All in favor of tabling signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Roll call. Yes is to table.
Janelle Fulbright?
Yes.
Don Garvin?
No.
Chuck Hoskin Jr.?
Yes.
China Glory Jordan?
Yes.
Chris Soap?
No.
Curtis Snell?
Yes.
David Thornton?
Yes.
Kara Callan Watts?
No.
Bill England?
No.
Bill John Baker?
Yes.
Jack Baker?
Yes.
Harley Buzzard?
Yes.
Julia Coates? Yes. Bradley Cobb?
No.
Joe Crittenden?
Yes.
Jody Kushенhop?
Yes.
Meredith Fraley?
Yes. We have
12 yes and 5 no.
12 yes, 5 no. Motion carries to table. Mr. Henry, is there any other action in regard to their request to carry the election law forward so they can get started? Or do we need to include that on the next rules agenda?
No, the election law, if you recall, Madam Chairman, passed the last Rules Committee and will be voted at full council on Tuesday. So I would expect that with the compromises that we made with the administration, that after that is passed at full council, that he will sign it and we'll have that done, that portion done.
All right, Mr. Cole, clear? Mr. Johnson? Okay. And Yes,
Could I ask one question more of Mr. Cole
in regard
to how they're arriving at their numbers in their remand?
Well, we've got a motion to table all of this already on the approved.
Well, but that goes to his report, not the, there's one important point that there are steps that they seem to be missing here that we did. We asked David Justice to take his geocoding ability along those bordering zip codes and tell us what was at large and what was in the district. And I don't believe they have taken it to that steps. And that's what I wanted to ask Mr. Cole.
With all due respect, I thought you meant Mr. Cole. She's posing a question to you.
Especially coming from the counselor that made the motion to table.
Well,
Mr. Henry.
Robert's Rules of Order, point of order supersedes all other actions that must be addressed. So she's made a point of order, so we have to recognize what the point of order is.
So point of order is we've tabled and we've moved on, so if we wanted to continue discussion, we wouldn't have tabled it.
Then I'll just ask it under announcements.
Okay, Mr. Hoskins.
I was just going to ask the chair to extend courtesy to the counselor who allowed all the questioning in the first place. But in any case.
Okay, next item is announcement. Next meeting is set for February 25th at 1 o'clock.
And now can I ask my question?
Okay, in an announcement form.
Yes, in an announcement form. I'll make an announcement. Mr. Cole, would you step up there? In announcement form, I'm hoping that you're going to take into consideration the final step in your process that asks geocoding to tell us of those zip codes that you all are now including entirely in the district. They have the ability apparently to tell us what is at large and what is in the district. And I don't believe that step is being taken now. So I'm assuming in announcement form, I hope you'll do that.
She's announcing she wants you to do that.
All I can assure you and every other member here is that when the commission exercises its responsibilities, we will do it to the best that we can to be fair and to comply with the Constitution, one Cherokee, one vote. And so it's there's a combination, there's a number of options that we have, and we kind of rely upon the statistician, so, but yes, we'll certainly keep that in mind.
Move adjourned.
Second.
Any other announcements?